Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the current Allflame league mechanic. So I made a tweet the other day talking about what I dislike about the league mechanic and ground loot in general right now. A lot of people got the wrong gist here. If you haven't seen my stream yet, I'm actually really enjoying the current league mechanic, and I'm enjoying like 80% of it. And I want to talk about what I think are the problems here, which Chris Wilson famously said players are good at finding the problems, but not that good at finding the solutions. I will still try to give some solutions at the end because I've been thinking about this quite a bit. Now, the reason I'm frustrated right now is because I think this mechanic could be one of the best PoE mechanics they ever made. And I don't say this lightly. There's a lot of mechanics where I don't really care about them. They're just, oh, monsters pocketed in a different color and they're in a map and you get like different loot, which are fun leagues, right? But this league is actually a little bit different for me because it's one of those out of map mechanics that I find fun. So you start at the charting right here, which you roll them like you would maps. You go in, you drop scarabs, you drop loot. It's quick, it's fun, and you can actually make really good money just charting without ever entering a voyage, just like picking up scarabs, selling them. You can easily make 15 div an hour plus, but there you go. So you collect the sulfur, which is very expensive. I actually have no notes for this. I think this is a really fun part of the mechanic, and they have storage space. It's maybe a little bit too easy. I don't know, like I've been leveling with my new character from level 70 onwards and never died, so that's a little bit awkward. But let's talk about the second part, because once you charted your charts, they go here, right? And you can plan a voyage with them, and they get an implicit. So you can see up here, adjacent modifier, adjacent areas contain 4 additional gold lanterns. So you put it in the middle, and all of these areas surrounding it will now have lanterns. Easy enough to understand, right? That's a cool concept. And there is stuff that is global and there's stuff that is adjacent. So for example, voyage modifier, rarity of monsters found in all voyages. So it doesn't matter where you place it, it just has a global buff. And on top of that, you have these border modifiers. Now, these make the run interesting. Adjacent charts have a chance to not consume anything. They have increased monster modifiers. And what you will notice here a lot, 100% more currency, is this is mostly juicing the mobs in the mechanic. So you're supposed to add rares, like for example, giant starfish, and then you're supposed to juice them up and juice them up. A lot of these modifiers are actually juicers. Like you're supposed to make a very juicy voyage and then drop ground loot and make money from that. But that is just not really the case here, because the monsters operate like every other monster in PoE, where the baseline loot experience is non-existent, right? If you go into a normal map where you just throw on an elk and you have nothing else, you're gonna drop like 2 fusings. Maybe you see a mechanic and that will make you money, but just the normal monsters that spawn within the map, completely irrelevant, right? Unless they spawn other things, and then we're once again talking about Beyond or something. And in this mechanic, it gets just revealed very clearly, because you have all these modifiers that in theory, 50% more rarity, that is a crazy multiplier, right? 100% more currency. But I can tell you, if you run this map, even with a decent setup, you will drop very, very little. And even if you do, it will pale in comparison to that 1 or 2 strongboxes, the operator strongbox you drop, where it just shits out scarabs. So in general, the problem here is that these do not matter. There's a single modifier that matters, and that is the border modifier, where you drop a divine from every rare. So that's really fun, right? So what you do is you put adjacent maps have up to 5 additional strongboxes, and you put that around the tile where you have the divine border. Divine border only gives this effect to 1 of these tiles. And then in that tile, you now stack like so many strongboxes. You also put tiles in that give you more rare monsters, so that multiplies it as well. And then you roll the strongboxes for rares and you get like 100 divines. And that's like guaranteed. If you get that border and you have it set up correctly, that is guaranteed. And that's exciting, right? Like it simply is. I've had it once so far, and it's just exciting. There is also one of these implicits that makes it so your equipment cannot drop, which is a really strong effect. Obviously, we know that already from Allflames. And that means that what's left is mostly scarabs and currency, which is where the money's at, obviously. So you can juice that with stuff like Pantheon Touched and Golden Lanterns and whatnot, Wildwood Wisps, and actually get decent returns. Like in that one map that I did, where I did a magic monster setup with that, I got back around about 15 divines in total, like 5 raw divines, some Valdos, a lot of scarabs and stuff like that. So that is good. The problem is that modifier is so rare. For example, Milky has been running the mechanic nonstop and he's efficient as hell. So he's not gotten it in like days. I got one randomly and apparently that was very lucky. So there you go. But you're never seeing that. And the other modifiers are just like, you might think this is like good, right? You might think like 2,000 wild whoop that's pretty decent. 25% more rare monsters, right? You stack it with this. It just doesn't drop anything, or not very much. So what's left here? What's left here is you're going to check your border modifiers. You reroll once because the first reroll is pretty cheap. You hover over, you see if you get the divine modifier. If you get the divine modifier, you're happy. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you click those in. Like you click them in randomly, right? And then you like connect them. That is what you're going to do. That's not very fun. I just now noticed that they go exactly back to the place that they were. That's actually really cool. But that's not very fun. That's not fun at all. There is a single border modifier that matters, and the other ones are just too random. Another problem here is that you need to collect all of these in advance for when you get the border modifier. Because let's say you get the divine border modifier right now. Let's say I reroll and I get the divine border modifier. I have to have already everything prepped, because otherwise I cannot do anything in between. I cannot waste it because I would be wasting 100 divines. So what I have to do is I have to go back to charts and just run it over and over and then delete the ones I don't want here, because I only have this space to work with until I get a setup ready for my divine border. And in the meantime, I can't run any voyages. And I also wanted to make this video because some of the changes in the patch notes are a little bit odd. Some of them are great. Dredge currency items can now be used on strongboxes and essences. If you didn't know, if you picked up an Exalt, it would block it because the game would try to take the dredged item, but it couldn't. So it wouldn't even give you the option to do the Exalt that you had in your inventory for operative strongboxes to Exalt them, right? So that's a great change. So they're definitely paying attention. Allflame lanterns no longer point at shrines or crab's nest. Great QL change. But then they have some other changes that are just, they just don't really make sense with how the mechanic is played. Blessings granted by offering to a deep now provide chances for certain common currencies to be converted to rarer currencies. If you don't know what that is, those are these. Chance for Jeweler's Orbs to drop as chromatic orbs instead. And this goes all the way to conversion into divines, right, for different currencies. And these just like happen all the time because these spines are like everywhere. Okay, so the problem is you cannot prep for it. If you have a divine one in a map randomly, it won't do anything. In fact, people on Reddit already posted it, but how are they supposed to know to juice exactly that voyage? Because those are random things you find during the voyage. So you can't juice every voyage because there's so much trash and throwaway and like flat rewards like operative strongboxes, message in a bottle, diviner strongboxes, right? Where you don't really juice, you just get your rewards. So how are we supposed to know to juice for this? It's just randomly going to happen, and it doesn't really offer anything. So what we're left with is what I think could be a better temple. If you don't know temple in PoE 2, that mechanic was quite convoluted, but then we figured it out kind of, and everybody built the same temple and we reaped the rewards, but it became so OP that it was mandatory and it felt really bad to do other things. I think this could literally be a better version of that and a less convoluted one as well. So here are my suggestions. Number one, make more build around voyage implicits and border modifiers. So let's say, for example, that right now the divine option here is the only thing that's worth building around. Make that 4 or 5. For example, add some other juicy stuff in there. It doesn't all have to be like, oh, fracturing orbs now drop from everywhere or whatever. But something like that, that would be amazing, right? That you actually reroll and you have different setups that you store for. But then we get to the second problem, which they have to address, which is give us 5 taps, or at least 3, to store your charts to prepare for these strats, because now we have different strats, we have to learn them, we have to adjust, we have to save the charts, so we need separate tabs here. And the third thing is, possibly if they do that and it gets buffed by a lot, it's already decent. Like this mechanic is already decent. Possibly remove some of the scarabs to not make it too OP and feel like everybody has to do it now. And it's the new juicer currency farm and everybody who's, I don't know, just normal mapping gets screwed. So that is something they'll have to think about. But I know it's not an easy option right now. It's not an easy fix right now because the ground loot in the game right now is really weird, where monsters just don't drop anything and you have to clash all these multipliers on top. But if you add 1 or 2 too many multipliers, all of a sudden you go from 3 divine per voyage to like 12, and all of a sudden the whole balance shifted and now everybody has to do voyages. So it's a really rough problem that they have to solve here. But I think these 3 suggestions could go a long way with this league mechanic, and I am still going to chart. I'm going to keep charting. I'm having quite a bit of fun here. I don't hate tile loot. I don't hate farming scarabs. I just feel like scarabs are often their easy way out to fix mechanics where they don't really know where to go with them. But yeah, that's about all I have for this video. I was going to make like a currency farming strat for this, but it's actually very simple, which is just run charts And then unless you get the perfect option, you just randomly throw them in there and you run the voyages. And they're juicy enough. They're also really good XP, really good gold. It's a decent enough mechanic. I'm just kind of bothered because this mechanic could be so much more. And if you look at the modifiers, they want it to be so much more, right? Like it's very apparent. And I think it has a ton of potential. So if you want to know more about the farming strat, check out Milky BK. If I made a video, it would basically just be a repetition of a lot of the things that he said in his last 3 videos. But yeah, otherwise, I have a build coming that I will talk about. So that's about it. See ya.